A couple of years ago, I lived in an apartment complex that was next to a large woods. Sometimes I would jog through the woods, but one day I wanted to explore it and go really deep into it. The woods itself went back several miles, and the farther back you got, the more dense it became. The running paths only went about a mile into the woods, but to get past it, you would have to go off of the trail. So one day, I went to the farthest location of the running trail, and then went off the path and into the woods. I walked through some trees and tall grass, and eventually got into just dense trees, with dirt on the ground, and some plants and branches on the ground, all over the place. It was a nice woods, and I kept walking for about 15 minutes, to get deeper and deeper. I was a little worried I would get lost, but I had my phone on me, so I could use it for general direction. The whole time I was walking, I couldn't see much farther than 20 to 30 feet around, because of how dense the woods was becoming. And either a tree or a plant would block your view of seeing very far. I was enjoying being out there, because I consider myself an outdoors person. But around 5 minutes later, I walked around the corner of a large tree, to a little opening in the woods. The opening was about 30 or 40 feet long. When I did, I saw a man standing across from the other side of the opening. I had to do a double take to make sure what I was seeing was real. It was a man holding a large stick in his hand. The man was shirtless and looked to be well over 6 feet tall. He was looking down at the ground, and when I stopped and listened, I heard he was muttering something, but I couldn't make out what it was. It seemed very strange. Then the man raised his stick and slammed it against the ground. I decided I wanted to head back then. I wasn't sure if the man knew I was there or not, so I decided to wait and see if he would leave. But then he started walking directly towards the tree that I was hiding behind. After that, I heard him yell, "Get out of here." I could only assume that he was talking to me. I didn't hesitate at all, and I ran back the direction I came from, as fast as I could. As soon as I started running, I heard the man start to run after me. Branches hit me left and right, and I screamed at the man to leave me alone as I was running. He continued to chase me though. After about a minute, I stopped hearing the man's footsteps behind me, but my adrenaline level was so high that I kept running. Finally, I paused to check my phone, to see if the direction I was running was the right way. It was pretty close, and I jogged the rest of the way back. When I got out of the woods, I was bleeding from my arms and legs, from all the branches that hit me. But it's better than being caught by that man, whoever he was. I never went into that woods again. When I was a kid, my family had this cabin up north that we would go to several times a year, mainly during the summer. One year when I was 9 years old, we went out for a weekend. It was my parents, me, and my older two brothers. The cabin was near lake as well as tons of forest. There was miles and miles of forest north of the property. And on the second day we were there, my brothers and my dad went fishing. I wasn't really a big fisher, so I just wandered off. I walked a little bit into the woods, and then a little bit farther. The woods had little paths going here and there. They weren't actual paved paths. It was just trails that had been walked on many times, by either people or animals. I followed a couple of trails that I have been on before, but pretty soon I stopped recognizing them. I'm not sure why I kept going, but I was a kid, and I don't remember what I was thinking at the time. I followed a couple of trails for about 10 minutes. I was just about to turn around and head back when I heard something. It was the noise of a stick being snapped in half. I looked to the direction which it came from. But when I did, I didn't see anything at all, just trees. I kept watching that area. I knew I had heard something. Probably an animal is what I was thinking. I stared at the spot for about 30 seconds, hoping to see a deer or something like that. But then I saw someone step out from behind a large tree. It wasn't a deer, and it wasn't a man either. It was a large brown, free creature walking on 2 feet. But it was definitely not a bear. It looked just like a Sasquatch to me. The forest, our cabin was that, had some local rumors about having Sasquatch. But I never believed them, and always laughed it off. It was about 50 feet away from me, if I had to guess, and looked at me very tall. Then it walked behind another tree, and didn't look at me at all. I was terrified of what I had seen, and ran back the way I came as fast as I could. I ran for about 10 minutes, which felt like a lot longer. But I couldn't find my way back. So I started shouting for my father and my brothers, and kept walking in the direction I thought they were in. Before long, they started yelling back, and they were eventually able to find me, after about 5 minutes. When I told them what I had seen, we went back to the spot, but of course, we didn't see anything. For the next few days, I tried to convince my family of what I saw, but they all seemed to think that it was just a bear. To this day, I don't know how to explain it, but I know what I saw. About 5 years ago, I was really into motocross biking. I got one for off-road riding, and it was the best thing I ever bought. I lived by some great land for riding, and me and my friends would often ride for hours on, and sometimes through the trails and nearby woods. We liked to go to this one that was really isolated, and all the times we rode there, we had never seen anybody else. You had to ride a good 10 minutes before even reaching the trees. One day I went up there by myself, because the rest of my friend group that I usually went with was busy. I still had the itch to ride though, so I rode out to the woods and onto the trails. It was a fun ride, even though I was by myself. I even kind of enjoyed it more. I rode on the dirt trail for about 10 minutes, until I was deep into the woods. Then I came to a corner, followed by a fast straightaway. But as soon as I came around that corner, I immediately had to slam on my brakes after what I saw. It was a small, clear wire hanging from about 3 feet above the ground. That was firmly tied between the trees. I slid to a stop and fell off my bike, just in front of it. I was fine, but if I hadn't seen it coming around the corner, I would have hit it at full speed and flew into the woods. I had heard of these things happening before, and it was clearly a trap so that I would fall off my bike. I reached and cut the wire off the trees with my pocket knife. I wondered who put the wire there, so I looked around. I didn't think anybody had even been in these woods, other than us. Then I heard a man's voice yelling from the distance. He was yelling curse words at me. I looked around to see where he was, but I couldn't find him. I asked who was there. All he said in response was that I needed to leave, or he was going to shoot me. I kept looking around, but I still couldn't see anybody. I couldn't quite tell from what direction his voice was coming from either. I just kept looking around. Then I heard a gunshot. After that, I wasn't going to stick around and see who was there. I got on my bike and rode off as fast as I could. I made it back all right, and then I told all my buddies about what had just happened. We called the police to let them know, but I don't think anything ever became of it. I guess somebody didn't want us riding there. None of us ever rode in those woods again, and I rode my bike a few more years before selling it and moving on.